certain provision of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 18 of the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Southborough Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information on the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on Town of Southborough's website at https://www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner: https://www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So first, call the meeting to order. First order of business is approval of the minutes of 8/20/2020. Anybody have any edits, comments?
So the only one for this one was just adding that comment from Attorney Watsky about the planning board letter. So that was the only thing that changed from last time.
Okay. Any other comments from other commission members? I'm seeing none.
I thought I saw a typo. I'm trying to find it. But maybe I can't find it, and that's okay. Oh, I was also wondering, I didn't see, I thought I said something in the 8/20 meeting about not being sure what explicitly meant or something, that explicitly wasn't exclusively. And that it wasn't actually obvious to me that explicitly excluded other uses. And that's why I
That
asked,
reference to the
8/20.
CR? The
Yeah,
Chestnut
sorry,
Hill?
Chestnut Hill Farm,
Okay.
page 8, line, 13, somewhere in there. Yeah, so can we have a line in there that there was a comment saying that it wasn't clear to me that explicitly excludes other uses?
I do remember you making that comment. Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
Which I think is why we insisted, because you say, then the other reason I mentioned it could say that Mr. Smith, no, before that, discuss sending a letter that the parking lot is only for trailhead use. But in the end, we agreed to send a letter citing the appropriate section. And I was fine citing the appropriate section because it just has the wordage of the CR, and that is what it is. But it's not obvious to me how to interpret it, as discussed in the meeting earlier this week.
Okay.
Got that, Melissa?
Yep, got it.
Okay, perfect. Any other comments? Okay, so do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Your second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor by roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yep.
Wittes,
Yep.
Pasmato.
Yes. Okay, next up is the minutes of 9/10/2020. Melissa, I saw you sent them out this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I have had zero chance to even open it up and look.
That's fine.
I don't know if anybody else has had an opportunity to read them, but
No.
I've been in back-to-back meetings ever since then. So,
They can easily wait until the next meeting. I just
okay,
at least wanted
let's
to get them
postpone
done.
those until next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So next up is the notice of intent, 81 Breakneck Hill Road, map 21, lot 16. And I do not have the reading for that.
I sent it to your email a little while ago.
Okay. Hang
But
on
I
just a
can
second.
easily read it if you want.
Hang on just a second. Okay. All right, in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, October 1, 2020 at 7 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 81 Breakneck Hill, map 21, lot 16, for the applicant of Hamid Atami. The project description is construction of a new home and associated site improvements.
All right. Hello, it's Vito Colonna.
Hi, Vito.
Hey.
Representing the applicant. How's everyone doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. All right, so we're here for 81 Breakneck Road. Melissa, do you want me to share my screen? Or
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You shave, I'm Vito.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of had to. It was time. All right, everyone see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so this lot here, it's a 1.6 acre lot. It's a vacant lot right now over on Breakneck Hill Road. There's a subdivision down to the south of this on the bottom of the screen. And there's another house to the north of this as an abutter up in this direction on the top of the screen. So this was actually submitted at the beginning of the whole COVID situation back under a different applicant, and reviews had started, but then we never actually held a hearing because everything kind of got on hold. And since then, there's a new applicant with new plans drawn up, and we're kind of back before you again with a project that some of you might have taken a look at the plans earlier, but some of you might not have. And so this lot was actually partially built out back in 1983 or 1984, around there. They had an approval to build a house with a septic system, and they actually put in the foundation. You can follow my cursor. There's a foundation out there. There's an existing well. The utility pole was put in, and the driveway was roughed in. There's a gravel drive running through with a 12-inch culvert under the driveway, connecting these two wetland areas. So, and then at some point that construction stopped for whatever reason. It was left basically abandoned, and it's since grown up. And, there's full-size trees within the foundation now. So it's since grown over, but it was partially built out back in the early 80s. There's a wetland up in the front of the site, up in here, and it flows from north to south, and it kind of goes down through this culvert, and then it kind of peters out down the bottom. We really didn't find where it connects into, but it was classified as a BVW under the, as we went through the review process with Lucas. And then there's also a ditch over in here that looks like it was from the well installation when they dug the ditch for probably where the tailings would go during the installation. We can kind of go over that wetland area after. I know Matt has a review comment on that that we can kind of go over when we get to his comments. So the proposal itself would bring a driveway in following the existing gravel drive. If you zoom in, you can kind of see we really wouldn't be widening much. This dashed line, that's the gravel, and the dark is the pavement. So we're really just kind of following that existing alignment. We do have to cross through the 20-foot buffer, which are these two kind of lines in here. So we did ask for a waiver from that requirement just to allow us to get across that area and improve this up to a paved driveway. To get proper grade over this culvert and kind of start sloping up to the road, we did need some side slopes. So we put some riprap on this side where we were very tight to the wetland, and on this side we were able to grade it out with just a vegetated slope. So we tried to keep this as narrow as we could, but still providing a 12-foot wide driveway through that area. Let's see. The house itself, okay. The house itself is actually into the buffer. The 100-foot buffer is out in here, right there. So body of the main house is in the buffer, but the septic system itself is outside the buffer zone. It's well out, maybe 120 feet or so from the wetland area. Our overall limit of work is, I think we have it on the plan here, about 23,000 square feet. So it's less than 50% of the lot. well under that, so we wouldn't trigger the stormwater bylaw. And we've ringed the area of work with an erosion control barrier. Let's see. Okay, and then, so I guess if we want to go through Lucas's comments first, or if you want to take questions from the commission, which you want to go.
Why don't we review Matt's comments?
Okay,
Lucas?
all right.
Yeah.
So they were sent out yesterday, some of the review. We can just start going through them from the top. Number one is basically about the delineation itself. And 1A is related to this flag 24. He recommended shifting it up in this area. He gave us ties to it. I've already plotted those on a plan. I could bring that up. Let me just see. Just 1 second. There we go. Rotate that. Oh, I rotated too far. There we go. Okay. So that would shift that one flag right up in here to that location. And we really didn't have much issue with that. So we can change that up onto the new plan. The second comment was related to this ditch associated with the well. We've added the flag numbers on there so it could be designated or recognize where everything is in the field. On this review, it had mentioned that they thought it should be regulated as an IVW. We're trying to find some more information on that, maybe get a little feedback from Matt. During the initial review process, during the last application, they had reviewed this, and Matt's initial review comments had said the depression located adjacent to the well does not appear to qualify as an IVW under the bylaw. So now,
Yeah, Vito, I can speak to that.
okay.
If you want. So that's what Vito just said is correct. In my previous memo, I had said that it didn't appear to qualify as IVW. However, I did think that the commission should consider whether it was qualified as jurisdictional under the bylaw as a land subject to flooding or inundation by groundwater, which is probably a bit more accurate as to what it is. I mean, it's a man-made dug area, but again, it was dug, sometime in the early to mid 80s. So it's been there a long time. It's providing whatever function it's providing at this point. And it certainly does, it's holding water in the springtime. So it's really, I guess a judgment call on the commission's part, whether you'd want to take jurisdiction under the bylaw or not. I think you'd be within your rights to do so. But it's probably not all that critical either, I guess I would say.
Okay. Yeah, we did look at it as far as being, isolated land subject to flooding or inundation. And, it wouldn't hold the requisite volume. It does hold water in the spring, as Matt said, but it wouldn't hold the requisite quarter acre foot to be counted as a isolated land subject to flooding. We don't plan on filling it in either case. It just becomes, if it becomes jurisdictional as an IVW, the 20-foot buffer would really, creep up into the lawn area that we had proposed here. And just trying to, pre-plan, it's kind of hard if things, change. We kind of had went on the assumption that it would not be an IVW. But as I said, we weren't planning on altering it at all. It's just an issue of the 20-foot buffer, if that may come up. I don't know if there's any more discussion the board wants on that. You want to just talk about that now? Whoops, hold on. There we go. Okay. We can keep going through the rest of the comments, or if you want to come back to this.
Yeah, go ahead through the rest of the comments, please.
Okay. All right. So the next one was, let's see, gotta get back to the right letter. Okay. It was just related to this utility pole in the center, whether that was going to be reused, and if it were, if there were any tree trimming that would be required. Initially, the applicant would like to reuse that pole just because it's already there, and they wanted to go overhead. And I think they wanted to ask if there would be any issue with if there were tree trimming required, not clearing, but trimming to get the wires in. If there were objection to that, I believe they would rather go underground and just follow the driveway alignment. You know, if there's going to be opposition to doing some tree trimming to get those wires through.
So there's no wires on it now?
No, you know, it was put in, it may have been a wire at the time. It was put in so long ago that
If I may.
nothing. Yep.
So anyway, I want to refresh everyone's mind that I did do the septic soil testing out here last summer at some point.
Mhm.
Anyway, that utility pole, my guess is that would have to be replaced anyway. If it was put in the 80s, that's what,
Hmm.
you know, 40-year-old pole now.
Yeah, that's one of the questions we were going to have, is whether it can actually be reused. The height might not meet the requirements. You know,
Even
I don't
just
even
the
know even the
structurability of
condition.
itself.
Yeah, I don't know the condition of it.
And so then, if you're thinking about it, then we're already into the wetland for that work. So
Does it have a tether on it?
tether, I can't remember.
You know, a thing that help hold it
Guy
up?
wire?
Yeah, guy wire, yeah.
I
I
can't
don't
remember.
believe it does.
Okay.
It was a smaller pole. It wasn't what you would normally see nowadays. I do know the size of it was a little smaller. So yeah, I'm not sure if they would have to end up replacing it anyway. So it may be cleaner just to go underground.
I
you
can
know,
also say that I regret not going underground more at my house.
Yep.
Especially after the other day.
Yeah, yeah, especially where this is going to run right through the woods, right through the trees. Yeah, yeah, I know your driveway's a long one too. So yeah, it might. I mean, if we could just go right down the driveway alignment, that'd probably be the easiest thing to do. You know, we're already digging there to put the water line through, and just carry that too. Anyone, I don't know if there's any issue with that, if we modify that with anybody.
From my perspective, that would be my preference.
Okay.
And you know, just stay out of the wetland
Yeah.
altogether, you know.
They might have to pull that
Replace the
pole.
pool, replace
know.
the pole, or
Yeah.
cut trees to get wires through, and you gotta string the
Yeah.
wires with trucks and things, and
Yeah. And then removing that pole, they probably could just pull it or just cut it at the base and take it out of there. You know, nothing that would cause too much, you know, nothing that cause disturbance out in that area. Okay, and then next one was asking about investigate the options, so feasibility for infiltration as part of the development. And we kind of discussed a little with this with the applicant before the meeting. And now we understand that, you know, going through the process for a waiver for the 20-foot buffer, typically there'd be some mitigation requested from the commission. And, you know, as part of that, we could offer some infiltration on the site, whether it be, you know, probably preferably something with the driveway, because that's related to the buffer. We could put a, you know, stone trench for some infiltration along the, you know, the meat of the driveway. We could probably do it somewhere, you know, up in here, up in this area. It gets a little tight down in here to be able to fit a stone trench on the sides, just because we're trying to grade off as fast as we can. But we could fit it, you know, at the beginnings or up in the top portion. You know, and if that's something that the commission weren't in favor of, we could also, instead of that, try to do some roof drain dry wells. But I guess the first option from the applicant's perspective would be to do a driveway trench drain, because that's also associated with that 20-foot buffer waiver.
Vito, could I ask a question?
Sure.
Where do you see that driveway sheet flowing to when you design it?
Yeah, so right now, this driveway kind of sheet flows off kind of down in this direction over to here, and then there's kind of a low point, basically at the wetland crossing is the low point. So you try to sheet flow it off the sides, but overall it generally grades obviously towards the wetland areas. You know, we have a high point back at the house and a high point at the street. Everything kind of bowls down there. Whether it goes off the edge, like over here into the lawn and then into the wet, or if it goes this way through the wet, it ultimately always all gets there, down towards the wetlands. Just by the nature of the lot itself.
What is the state of the driveway right now? I'm trying to see it on Google Maps and I don't remember it from having driven by there. On the sort of historical Google Maps, I don't see a driveway at all.
It's a gravel goat path, really.
Yeah, it was gravelled and then now it's grown up through. Yeah, you can drive right up there. When we drove up for the testing, you can drive right through it. There is some stuff growing all in it, so you might not. You drive by, you wouldn't even see it.
Right. At the same time, my big machine, it's 9 feet wide. That was rubbing on both sides.
Yeah, yeah. Everything is creeped in over the years, and it's yeah. You wouldn't even notice it, if you're driving down the street though.
But
I think
it's
there's a
it's
couple-
clear that the driveway area is not currently a wetland.
Yeah,
Yes.
when you go right across it, and there's a pipe that
Okay.
conveys the runoff between this.
Yes,
This 12-inch
absolutely.
pipe is there
Okay.
right now.
It was high and dry the whole way in.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I guess we can talk about the infiltration in a little bit. The only other two comments were just about the straw wattles and silt fence seemed appropriate, and then just saying if DEP issues any comments, address those. We do not have a Mass DEP file number yet, so that's something
I was just
we
gonna
are
ask
waiting
that,
on.
yeah.
Yep.
We don't.
So we'll get on them and have that by the next meeting. So I guess the two questions from the review that are kind of outstanding would be the status of the ditch near the well, and then infiltration. What's the board's what commission's feeling on infiltration on, options? We would be willing to provide some.
All right, let's hear from the board. Any comments, questions?
Well, you said it's tight, that you won't be able to get an infiltration trench down the side without being in the wetland, correct?
Yeah, just at the bottom,
Just at
just
the
because we're trying to, just right in here. We could get it all the way up on the tops and the sides up there. It's just right in here. Right down here, we're grading, right off the driveway, just down to the, leaving about 2 feet to the wet right there. And same with on this side. We're trying to, right in here, it just gets very tight to the wet. As soon as we get out of that one little area, then we have more space to work.
Mhm.
Um,
Would berming the driveway down past the wetland and doing something like a rain garden or infiltration down there be a possibility?
Yeah, like if you could fit it right in here.
Yeah, something like
if you see
that.
yeah, and carried it past.
Yeah.
We could look at that option. I probably want to go over it with the applicant first, just to see how they, receive that. It's just we might have to clear a little area. That's the only other thing that the commission would have to weigh, is whether clearing that to create a rain garden is worth, is worth the benefit. I don't know how you feel. I mean, it could definitely fit something right in there. It's
Is that the low spot?
Yeah, the low spot right now is actually right at the culvert. We pushed the low spot a little bit further so we could get cover over this. It's only a plastic, or it's PVC pipe, and there's not too much cover over it. So we were trying to get 18 inches of cover. You can go down to a foot. So we were adding some cover right in this area. So the low point actually gets pushed a little further down where the spot grade is over here.
I think
Can you
Sherry's
zoom out
suggestion
just
is a
a
good
hair,
one.
Okay.
Go to Russ.
Thanks. I just wanted to be able to see more.
Yep.
Thank you.
So Mark, and commission members, my only comment on the infiltration would be, I don't disagree that the rain garden's a great idea. I think the benefit of doing the rooftop runoff to some sort of a underground infiltration system is it's probably a lot less maintenance and less likely to get clogged up or forgotten about over time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Generally it's clean runoff going in there. You don't have to do much to it other than clean your gutters, which hopefully people would do anyway.
Is that not proposed anywhere in here, or?
We hadn't proposed any roof drainage.
Okay.
We could fit something kind of in the front or over on this side down in here. We do have the septic in the back, and this is all well, that was ledge inside the foundation and ledge all around the outside. But we could fit a roof drain right here or up in the front right in there.
And how long is the driveway?
Driveway, let's see if I got something to go by. It's about 150-ish around there.
So in terms of square feet, the driveway is, you know, it
Times,
shadows
yeah.
the roof, right? I mean, there's a lot more
Yeah, it
driveway
might be it'll
impervious
be a
than
little
roof.
bit more, yeah, a little bit more on the driveway, but it's comparable. You know, if you, let's see, yeah, it'd be close. That might be the easiest and cleanest way to do it is just to do the roof water. Like you say, the long-term maintenance of it. It's something that people, you know, you might forget about the rain garden over here and just kind of let it go.
And they might put sand and salt in that driveway in the winter.
Certainly. It doesn't prohibit us from just asking them to grade it so that there is some swales there that kind of hold the water for a while and allow it to leach out as well.
Yep.
When I look at it, that's what I think though, that low point by the wetland over years is just going to erode away. So anything in the design just to get it past that so that the water just from the driveway, the roof, I think should be put into a unit regardless, because that'll help.
Okay. Yeah. So we'd look at some option of kind of conveying this past. Yeah, I would think the top, I don't know if this is, you know, if the top were sheet flowing off just like your normal lawn, if we kind of focused on this kind of area from here down, trying to convey it past and kind of, even if it just, like you said, sheet flows off or goes into this area, whether it's not a formal rain garden or anything, we could at least get it so it's away from the wetland, further away, and have it travel around. You know, so it's not directly at it.
Any other comments from commission members?
I just have one quick question. Is the septic been approved? Yes, no?
I don't know for sure.
All right.
100% for sure. I'll have an answer for you. I don't see any reason it won't be, but I don't think for sure. I don't have a 100% answer on it. We'll find out.
It's
Now, would it be-
well outside our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
If you know, would it be, let's see, would it be too much to ask that we get the roof infiltration and then try to handle most of the driveway? Because there's that, where the turnaround is, there's that nice bend
Yeah.
where you
there's
could put a
this-
little rain garden in there and bring most, you know,
yeah, we could even
probably
look at,
capture half of it, right?
you know, something down at the base in here.
Yeah,
Or
then,
something. Well, I think I know what you guys are looking for, so we'll come up with something. Yeah, some way of collecting this, providing a little bit of treatment infiltration before it gets in there, gets to the wetland.
yeah, okay.
You know, we'll look at a couple different options. Maybe it's up in here, you know, whether it be down near the low point, or a combination, you know, of those or possible swales. We'll come up with an option, I think, for the commission for next.
Yeah,
week.
they get the highest percentage of it
Yeah.
underground, right?
Yep.
You can, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I think what I'm hearing from the commission members is they're more interested in infiltrating the runoff from the roof and the driveway than, you know, doing anything with the ditch. You know, the ditch is the ditch, is what it is.
Yep.
You're not going to touch it, so.
Yep.
Vito,
Okay.
if you abandon the well, do you have to go in there to do that?
They do have to get in there. So they have to get in there a little bit. It's not super intrusive. I can maybe, what I could do is get a little more detail on actually what they're going to need to do I can present it to you next meeting.
I'd just
I
be
don't know the
curious.
exact procedure that they're gonna have to go through to get it. But they do have to fill and abandon that well. So I can get the procedure on how they do that, and we can go over it next meeting. That'd be good.
So if I was a betting man, I'd say that ditch is a good example of poor backfilling
Yes.
back in the day.
Yeah.
And if somebody had backfilled that properly, because it's probably a water line trench to that house.
Yeah. It leads straight over there.
And I'd be out of my mind if my contractor set me up for failure like that.
Yep. Yeah. It looks like all of a sudden one day this just stopped and they walked away.
Melissa, I have a question for you. Did this originally have an order of conditions? I thought I read that.
I think we determined that I couldn't find the exact one, but there's a lot of ones in my files that still have lot numbers. So it
Okay.
very well could have, at least from what I remember from the first go round.
Wouldn't they be on file with the deed? If they were issued?
Mm,
I didn't find
Not-
anything.
Yeah,
But
not everything was recorded, or enforced to be recorded as much as it is now.
yeah,
Okay.
and it was 1983, so that was basically the first year
Yeah.
yes.
of everything.
Ah.
So it could have. We didn't find anything, but that doesn't mean that it's not out there.
Okay.
Yeah, we found more of the orders of surrounding properties.
Yeah, I think you had the one from right above us.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Top of the page. Yeah.
So Vito, just a quick question. What's the proposed timeline for this development?
They're looking to get started before the winter. They want to get the foundation in before it gets too cold. So they're ready to go, basically whenever they get their approvals.
Okay.
We have to
So-
continue anyways, though, because we don't have a DEP number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Vito has some work to do.
Yep.
So just a quick, depending on how bad the winter is, what would be the proposal for managing snow?
So they would have to keep it. I mean, they would probably just plow it as needed, but they'll push it, obviously there'd be conditions in the approval. They can't plow it towards the wetlands and everything. They'd probably
Right.
plow it, the best they can up into the site. But yeah, all the conditions usually include that there's no plowing into the wetlands.
Okay.
All right. Do I hear a motion to continue to the next meeting?
So moved.
You hear a second?
Second?
Okay, all in favor via roll call vote?
Watson,
Yeah.
Pete.
Yep.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Basmato.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good night.
All right. You too. Good night.
All right, next up is continued notice of intent, Bigelow Road, map 49, lot 19. Bear with me while I find the legal ad here. Okay. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, October 1, 2020 at 7:10 p.m. by a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider notice of intent for a project located at Bigelow Road, map 49, lot 19 for the applicant, Robert Stewart. The project description is construction of a gravel trail and viewing platform for SOLF.
Hey, hello again. By now, I think you guys all have a pretty good idea of the project. Since the last meeting, the wetland has been flagged, and some more surveying has been done down there. Jesse and Whit can probably speak better to that than I can. So if they're here.
Hold on 1 second.
Did you say it's been flagged and surveyed?
It hasn't been professionally surveyed, no, but there has been additional mapping that we've done down there that Solf's done.
What does the word mapping mean? I mean, just for clarification.
We've made a new map using, it is off of a phone GPS again, but I mean, it's within a few feet of the location of everything, and due to the location of the trail, we're coming nowhere near the lot lines, so.
Okay. Thanks.
I could clarify a bit on the situation out there. I know there was a discussion about the accuracy of the assessor's maps with respect to the lot lines shown on their maps, and I think it was Ben Smith who said, "Gee, you know, a lot of places in town they're just approximate." In this case, they're not approximate. The lines are exactly as shown on the recorded survey plan, which is recorded at the Worcester Registry of Deeds, with one exception, and that is that whatever outfit actually does the mapping work for the town, it left 10 feet off the road frontage. On the assessor's map, it shows 88 point something feet, and it's actually 98 point something feet. So there's no doubt about the accuracy of the lot lines as shown on the assessor's maps. When you get down to the edge of wetland, I believe Matt's been there. And Melissa, did you go down there as well?
I didn't, Matt just went by.
Ah, okay. When you get to the edge of the wetland, it's a highly complex situation made so by fill that was deposited, you know, somewhere between 40 and 60 years ago. A lot of fill was put in there by probably by dump truck. Some of it is broken stone, 3-inch broken stone, all black. So to do a really accurate wetland delineation, this is according to Dave Burke. I went to the site with Dave Burke, who's a licensed professional wetland scientist. Dave said, wow, it would take me, you know, the better part, if not more than a day to really pin down every single little wetland here, and you'd wind up with a map or flagging that showed irregular polygons, regular circles of wetland, just because of the nature of the alteration down there. There is and Robbie knows this, there was a makeshift little bridge over what was once a wetter spot, I think, rotting pine logs, it looks like. And so the trail essentially would go by there and out the platform. Matt, I think the platform area you described as a little island of higher ground. Is that right?
Yeah, so when I was out there, there seems to be one larger area of this dumped crushed rock that potentially might not qualify as wetland. Again, like Mr. Burke didn't do. I didn't get into micro delineating it either, but I think there's definitely a high point there that's previously disturbed by historic fill that seems like might be able to be utilized by Mr. Stewart to do what he needs to do or would like to do. That kind of really minimizes direct impacts to wetlands, as opposed to, I don't know if there was a proposal to actually remove that stone. Was that part of this, or am I mistaken?
No, we wouldn't disturb any of the ground surface at all. It would be just a matter of putting, placing the platform out at the edge of the larger wetland and creating some sort of a boardwalk, sections of boardwalk to get to that point. Yeah,
so I think that from what I saw out there, I think something like that makes the most sense. I think that old rotting timber bridge that you described to me looked like an old swamp mat So I don't know if a utility company at some point had potentially tried to gain access. I know you got the power lines out there. If they went in at one point and just left a timber mat behind and it's just rotted away. But certainly just kind of replacing that essentially in kind, I think would be a pretty minimal impact because there's already something there. And then if the stone were sort of to be used as it can be without any disturbance, then you're really kind of minimizing the work in the wetland.
Good. I mean, that's how we envision the project. Robbie, does that match with your thoughts on how to make this happen?
Yeah, the original plan was actually to utilize that island that you're talking about, the island of fill, to put the platform on. Plus, that's basically the best vantage point for the platform, and it keeps it well above the water line because it is slightly raised. So I know some people earlier on had concerns about the beavers and rising water levels. So that'll help keep it well above the water line for that as well. And then we would just be making a trail, and the bridge that we were talking about is more of a boardwalk beam bridge sort of thing that would go out over that lower wet area that timber, the existing timber mat is on. So we wouldn't be really adding anything else. We'd basically be removing that timber mat and replacing it with a boardwalk.
Russ, I know you're very familiar with the site down there. I wanted to get some feedback from you on it. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
That's all right. Pick my brain all you want.
Then we'll go to
I
Sherry
know-
after that.
I know from talking with Ed Cram through the years, he remembers Mr. Bigelow driving a truck down through there. So piles dumped and this and that. It's certainly been through the years an active area. The whole swamp, as I think in the first meeting was brought up, particularly by Sherry, about the amount of that the water has risen in just in the past year or two. So yes, it's definitely been a swamp, but was it ever this wet? No. I also heard, I can't prove it, but that area used to be used as this school bus turnaround rather than the kind of parking area that's butchered in the state land across the street. And beyond that the town themselves used to use the top of that area as their street sweeping dump. It wouldn't surprise me if that's where the Japanese knotweed came from. What else do you want to know?
There's definitely some evidence of work going on down there and stuff too. There's some large concrete culverts down there.
You're right. There is some leftover materials in there, some utility pole pieces as well.
Yep. And some discarded like curb blocks, like concrete curb slabs.
Oh, who knows where it all came from?
There's utility poles and curbing and all of that along the whole wetland, I think, because I've got several in my yard as well. I think that's the way the whole back of this wetland was filled.
Quite possibly, yeah.
I certainly know that Mr. Davis used to use utility poles for his fence posts. I've got them all over my place.
There's no question that this lot was laid out as a potential subdivision at some point. That's why we've got the 40-foot strip and the flares where the strip meets Bigelow Road. And whatever foolish notion it was, I think gave up pretty quickly after dumping a few truckloads of fill down at the edge of the swamp.
So Sherry, since you live nearby there, do you have any more color to put on this?
So do I want to what? I couldn't
Do
hear
you have any more color to put on this?
Not really more color. Yeah, it's not exactly an easy wooded area to go into. It's not pristine. There's probably a lot of dumping down there. I'd walk by it all the time. There's Japanese knotweed. There's bittersweet. And I don't think it's a bad project, so don't get me wrong, and I think the Boy Scouts are great. My biggest concern is that the wetland isn't delineated to the extent that we accept normal NOIs for. So if we're gonna take a pass on this, is that gonna haunt us later with other NOIs? That's my biggest concern at the moment.
Sherry, just to put your mind at ease potentially a little bit on that. As I said, I did go down and review Mr. Burke's boundary. It was actually 2 flags that I modified that I felt weren't correctly placed, and hung new flags out there where I felt that belonged. As far as the interior dumped island idea in there, I don't think that's really too far out of what we might accept in town, to be honest with you, based on the type of the project. So I certainly don't think this is setting any sort of precedent really, that someone would come back and say, well, you just let them build something without a true delineation that's been done by a qualified person and satisfactorily reviewed. So I don't think that's a big concern in my mind.
Okay. Then my next question is, was there an actual plan with all those flags put on it for us? Because I didn't see one. If there was, I'm so sorry.
We, Jesse Robertson Dubois, who's been to the site several times, he was in a rush and he has had a terribly busy week at the farm. He's one of the farmers at Chestnut Hill Farm. So he didn't get to finish a good GPS line of or locations of those flags, but we definitely will do that so that we used to have something in the file showing those flag locations.
He did send in a map. It was kind of last minute, but he did send in a map that does show roughly where the wetland delineation lines are. So if I can screen share that, I can show that real quick too.
I don't think you have the allowance right now. I don't think he sent it to me, right?
Okay. I can email that to you right now if you want.
Yeah, if you do that, then I can open it up.
And is there a long-term maintenance plan proposed for this trail?
The Open Land Foundation definitely would keep the trail open, fighting back the bittersweet and whatever else tries to encroach on it. No question. And we do that at our other properties.
Yeah, and we currently also have volunteers and students from Clark University and local institutions that come in and help with invasives and other properties too.
There's some monster bittersweet vines down there. There's one that's at least 4 inches in diameter. It's the largest one I've seen in town so far.
Matt, in terms of the 20-foot, how is that all impacted here, and how are we dealing with that?
Obviously, there's going to be some disturbance through that 20-foot buffer zone for the construction of the trail. But I think if they're going to do work for removal of invasives, either in the wetland or through the 20-foot or throughout the 100-foot buffer zone, that certainly seems like that would qualify as mitigation if the commission feels that's adequate mitigation.
So at the end of the day, the platform will be within the 20-foot and remain there. Is that correct?
I think it's going to be, yeah. I mean, I guess if you were to say that the mound of stone that it sounds like they're going to build it on, mound is a little bit of an exaggeration. The fill area that may not be wetland, I guess that would qualify as within the 20-foot zone. But again, I think, there's an argument to be made that this is an educational, potentially educational benefit to promote the value of wetlands in the area. It's not like they're building a shed or some other structure that's completely unrelated to maintaining the value of wetlands in town.
Right, but it will be something that will be inviting public access to on a regular basis to be within the 20-foot. I'm just thinking about how we deal with that as a waiver request going forward, and not setting up some kind of precedent that we've got to live with going forward.
Is your question about some sort of notice that we could add to the structure saying, given that we're in this area, public, quote unquote, these are things you should be mindful of? Is that what you're asking? I was just curious.
We have a town wetlands bylaw, which basically says that within the, closest 20 feet of the wetland, that we kind of mitigate that as a, no touch or stay out of.
Sure.
Right. So, and we don't take that lightly. And, we have issued waivers for that for temporary disturbance. And then once the project is done, they, reestablish that the way it was. If it's a new house, for example, being built, we may ask them to put some monuments along that 20 foot so that the homeowner understands that they're not to go in that, including, mowing and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And, here what we're saying is that we're going to build a viewing platform that might very well be within that 20-foot area and is going to remain there. And, how do we deal with that moving forward is my question to the commission.
Didn't we
Hey,
talk
Mark?
about this last time and sort of come to the conclusion that there are boardwalks and platforms for educational and recreational purposes all over the place? And this is a pretty normal thing to even just offset it with the educational purposes, but they've also got removal of invasives and a bunch of other things.
We have allowed like boardwalk crossings over wetlands as part of our trail system map in town.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that to me is a little bit different, where it's going to be a viewing platform where you walk down, you stop, you step on it and you view. It's not quite the same thing as what we allowed at the town forest, for example, and some other properties.
And I mean, maybe I misunderstood it in the previous NOI that we were just looking at. Weren't they paving a driveway in the 20 foot?
Well, that's an existing gravel roadway that's been there since 1984 or 3 or whatever it was.
On that point too, the area of fill down there that we are building the platform on, I mean, it has already been disturbed. It was a long time ago, but much like the driveway, I mean, we're not destroying pristine wetland to put in this trail. I mean, we're not even destroying pristine, or to put in the platform, sorry. And we're not even destroying pristine wetland to put in the trail, because I mean, there's concrete culverts down there. There's some trash down there. There's utility poles down there. So we're going to be cleaning up the area a lot. And even if we do disturb a thin strip running down through for the trail, I think, I mean, it's up to the Conservation Commission, obviously, but I think that offsets the amount of damage we'd be doing.
And Mark,
Are you suggesting that you're going to be removing the concrete items and the poles that are down there as well? Is that what you just said?
We definitely have to remove the utility poles. They're in the way of the trail. But
Okay.
the concrete culverts, if we can remove them, we will be removing them. But they're also huge, so I'm not entirely sure how plausible
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
gonna be for the project.
How would you remove them?
Yeah,
What would be the method be?
Yeah, that's
you need to
kind
get
of
a
question.
backhoe down there, and there's a lot of big boulders across that 40-foot strip in more than one location. It would probably be a lot, that would cause a lot more disturbance than just letting them lie where they are, but the concrete culverts. And Robbie, I just wanted to clarify one thing. The project does not entail importing any fill for the path itself, does it? Just going to make a path through the wooded area without adding anything to it, right?
Up closer to the top, especially in the areas with the pokeweed and the heavy vegetation, we'd be putting gravel down to hold back the weeds.
Okay.
Once we get into the wetland, there's not actually even all that much, or what's allotted as the wetland, there's not even actually that much ground cover that we'd really need to worry about. We'd need to clear out some bittersweet, but that would be the majority of the clearing for the trail. So no, we wouldn't be putting anything down other than maybe a plank bridge, like I mentioned earlier, over some of the wetter parts.
Okay, thank you. Yep, that's what I thought.
Mark, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
Since we're talking about a platform here that's essentially is a deck, right? The one sketch I've seen so far, decks are dangerous because if you're out birding and you step backwards, you'll go off the back end of it. Is there any consideration, and this would also help with people encroaching onto the 20 foot, is there any consideration of putting a railing around the deck to make sure people are safe and stay on the deck?
The deck isn't very high off the ground. The support beams are only
How
12
high?
inches,
I
and
thought it was 20 inches. 20 inches off the
buried.
ground?
It's going to be buried a couple inches into the ground as well. So not even a full 20 inches off the ground, which is
Yeah, that's
below
still
building
almost
code for railing.
Is there any need to run this by the building inspector because it is a deck?
It's under the building code for railings. I believe it's over, I'd have to check on this, but it is under the height limit and at which railings are required. I'm not sure what the exact height limit is, but I checked on it about a month ago.
Okay, all right. But it would serve to keep people on the deck rather than having them stepping off and venturing out onto the wetlands or down to 20 foot. So, because most of these that I've ever been on always has a railing around it to keep people corralled. But
yeah, so the area around the platform, I mean, it is kind of out on the island of Phil there. The area around that island, I don't think we really need to worry about anyone venturing off for the simple reason that, you know, there's at least a foot of water with probably 3 or 4 feet of mud below. And there's dense vegetation in and around the platform. So people would be forced by nature to basically stay on the trail and the platform. If railings are something that the Conservation Commission would like to require to move forward, it's definitely something that we can do, but I don't think it's needed.
yeah, we'd have to talk about that. Okay, thank you.
Melissa, do we have a DEP number for this project?
We do.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, and they made a comment about pressure treated timber too, right? On there,
Correct.
right.
All right, so we have a picture in front of us with some dimensions and lines on it. What are we looking at?
Robbie, do you want to describe the map that I have shared?
Whit can probably speak better on it than I can. He was behind more of the actual measuring. Whit, are you still there?
I'm here, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an accurate depiction of where the wetland flagging is. That red line you see going across the 40-foot strip and then over onto the property at number 42. And the trail would extend by boardwalk sections out or beyond that wetland line or flagging line. And the island is you know, I don't know how many feet into the wet area it is. I should have measured that and did not. But the wetland line is short of those, the old planking or matting, wooden mat sections that is located in there too.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask a question. There's a blue line, a purple line, an orange line, and a red line. So the red and the orange line are the trail, and the purple.
And green lines.
Oh shit, I missed it. So the purple line is what? And what's the blue line? Because they go perpendicular to the orange and the red.
The orange line is the dead center of the 40-foot strip.
Okay.
The red line is the approximate location of the flagging, though I haven't been out there since Matt changed a couple of flags. And the extension of the orange line is just, I guess, goes out to the, I don't know why that's there. Jesse would have to explain that. He was the one to put it on the map, and I don't think he's on the call.
So I'm going to ask the last arrow where it says end of 350 long center line. Is that where the platform's going to be?
No, it nowhere near that
Okay.
far out.
Okay. It's back towards where the orange is, possibly.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Kind of see the water line on this map too, following the edge of the brown along the dark and the green. We're going to probably be about 10 feet back from that water line, if that gives you a little bit better idea.
The water line.
Mark, maybe we should try to go out there and see it. I know I live on the road, but I haven't even walked down there. That might be a.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
struggling
there's
a little bit with this.
I think there's a lot of value for you guys to go down and see it firsthand personally. When you see it, you'll see the fill, you'll see the old timber mat. I think you'll have a different perspective on it personally.
And you're welcome to park in my driveway if you need a spot.
Oh, why, thank you.
That's a very good suggestion.
Yeah, yeah, I'm struggling a little bit with this picture / map, whatever you want to call it. I'm kind of in Sherry's camp with this. The other thing I just want to say is from being on the commission for a couple of years, and having many scout projects come in front of us, this is by far the most complicated one that has ever come in front of us, by far. I mean, we support scout projects, Eagle Scout projects. We encourage them, but this to me seems like it's a huge undertaking compared to a lot of other ones that we've had come in front of us. And I just don't know. I think Robbie's enthusiasm and energy is in the right place, and it sounds like he's a real go-getter. He's articulate in his conversation, and it sounds like he's thought through this thing. But it's a big job. It just is. I don't know if the other commission members agree with me or not with respect to that, but it's a big undertaking. I mean, you're talking about 300 some odd feet of pathway that's all overgrown with invasives and so forth, and cleaning that all out, and it's just a lot from my perspective.
As far as the actual labor goes, we do definitely have the help within the troop that is willing to step up and help with this project. And honestly, so far the biggest part of this project has been getting the permits and stuff. So
Dealing with us, right?
I guess
we can get through this.
I had a similar thought, Mark, as I looked again at the information and the documentation. And so I guess one thing that occurred to me, and this is not to take anything away from Robbie and his project, but I did have a question for, I guess it's for Whit, for Solve, is this project primarily an Eagle Scout project, or is this a Solve project that the Eagle Scout troop is able to support you with? So to ask a slightly different question is, if Robbie decided that he didn't want to do this project, would you still continue with this, development?
I'll answer that by saying that this is entirely at Robbie's initiative with, I think, the collaboration of a Self board member, Lawrence Spezzano, who's on the call. He's a biologist and teaches biology. And he's a field biologist who's done some studies on the Beals Preserve with respect to reptiles and amphibians. And he also has enlisted the help of some Clark University students to do biological studies out here on this Solve property. But no, it's not Solve's initiative. We're supporting Robbie in his efforts here.
Yeah, I think he'll have the support not just of the troop, but also of the board, and as we go through. So yeah, it is a big project, but it's one that we're confident he can handle and his troop can work through as well. And we're also confident that the impact is minimal and the benefits are huge, both from an environmental and an educational perspective.
Right, and I think if the board members get out there to go to the site, number one, there's a pretty good path going in there already, thanks to Robbie's efforts and my chainsaw work. And it's a lot shorter than down to the edge of wetland than you might think. It's actually a pretty short distance to get down there. It's not
Well,
the
I'll
300.
certainly make a point to go out there and get a better appreciation of this.
Good.
I mean, if any of the Conservation Commission members want to meet up at any point too, we can go down there and give the tour of the flagging, because there's certainly a lot of posts and flags and markers down there. So I'd be willing to do that too.
Yeah, well, we have to be careful because if 4 or more of us show up at the same time, it's considered a public meeting, so we'd have to post that. 3 or less can just show up, but 4 or more cannot.
So one thing we definitely asked for last time that I guess we still don't have, and would, I think from what everyone's saying, need for next time is the nice drawing, the very clear drawing, showing this is where the platform is on the map, this is where the trail is, this is where the wetland is, and some very rough estimate of how much is being disturbed. And you've already got in there, I guess, some of what's offsetting that, but some description in the document of how you're offsetting that, right? That it's educational purposes as well as you're removing a bunch of invasives. Does everyone agree that would be very useful for the document?
Oh, absolutely. Not only useful in terms of an NOI, it's really required.
Yeah.
It's back to Sherry's point. I mean, this this becomes a NOI, becomes a certificate, an order of conditions, and then at the end of the project, in order to lift the order of conditions, we have to have a certificate of compliance. So there's a number of steps to this process that we're obligated to see our way through.
And
whether it's a subdivision or Boy Scout project, when you get to this level, they have the same level of requirements.
Right, if I can comment on that, now that we've established the wetland line, I think the rest of that can be put in place pretty easily.
I would agree. The only other thing might be, the survey issue and really understanding whether or not, the Google Earth or Google Maps represents exactly what's in the field and on the ground, and how do we get over that point?
So just a quick question. So having Matt in the commission visit the site and offer his perspective and expertise, was that wasn't deemed sort of useful enough or sufficient enough? Or I guess I'm trying to understand myself. I do understand sort of the order of operations, so to speak, but I mean, I think to some degree I think there's enough of a convincing perspective. I think we've got sufficient plan, I think, to go forward. Wouldn't you say? I mean, or am I just being premature?
Well, I think there's a more detailed plan that's necessary.
Okay.
That I think somebody mentioned, was it Jesse, didn't have time this week to put together? Because he was
That-
very busy with the farm work, but is
That's correct.
still going to do that. So, that's identifying, on a piece of paper, on a plan that we can record at the Worcester County of Deeds when we issue a order condition. It has to be recorded. that carries on with the land. Whether it's owned by a developer, a homeowner, or self. And then once the project is done, there'll be a certificate of compliance that will be requested for, and then issued with a as-built associated with it. That's just the process. I mean,
Mm.
that
And I
just is
think-
what it is.
And I think that's what Mark was, really, highlighting a little while ago, is that this is a much more complicated project than we would normally see for an Eagle Scout project. So, the last Eagle Scout project I think I recall was, or one of them was to put the little free library book exchange and to put a stand in the parking lot of Breakneck Hill Road. Now, that came before the commission because of the our responsibility in relation to that property. But I don't remember, even though I've only been on the commission for just 18 months, any other Eagle Scout project that's been so wide in scope. And because of the scope that you've defined, it requires the NOI, and the NOI has associated with it the requirement for the plan, for the wetland marking and the survey, the order of conditions, the as-built plan. So it's, that's what we're really trying to highlight here, is that we have to regard this in just the same way as any other project that is impacting wetlands, even
Sure,
though it is for educational purposes, as opposed to, increasing the value of someone's property by adding a swimming pool. I mean, we don't have really any option but to ask for those.
No, I appreciate your perspective. I was saying, like, for example, I think it was shared with you, the property at Templeton Woods where the boardwalk was crossing through. I believe that was shared with the commission. A few of the town projects going through or involving wetlands. There was one that a Boy Scout troop did at our property at Templeton Woods off of 85 that went over wetlands, and it was a boardwalk that traveled through. And I'm not sure, I think sorry, I'm getting
So I might be able to speak to that a bit, and please.
Mark was
somebody
saying,
speak-
I'm sorry, just let me just finish. So he was saying at the boardwalk, Mark was saying something about it going over. If it goes over and back, it's okay, but if it stops, it's not. Like Mark, you were saying something, if a boardwalk goes over the wetland, it's better than.
Well, it's not as simple as that.
I just,
This proposed project has got, a platform that's being proposed to be built within the 20-foot, what we would call, no touch, no builds sort of zone.
Sure.
And it's going to remain there. And, in terms of dealing with that, we need to have a waiver. There has to be, a reasonable reason for it. And what's being proposed here is that it's going to have tremendous educational benefit, and so on and so forth. So we've got to weigh that in with respect to the impact and dealing with a bylaw. If it was a home, for example, that was being built, or somebody wanted to put a pool in their backyard, we would do everything in our power to keep them out of that 20-foot no build zone. And even if they wanted to use that to build whatever they were building as a temporary disturbance, we would make sure that when they were done, it was restored. And a lot of times we asked them to put up some kind of monuments so that the homeowner knows moving forward that, that's an area of their property that we're protecting in addition to the Wetlands Protection Act with a 100-foot buffer zone. So the outer 80 feet, there's a lot more leeway for them to do work in, but our bylaw restricts the work within that inner 20 feet. Now, I think the Templeton Woods that you're referring to is down by the Mass Pike overpass and Route 85.
Yes, yes.
And that was done, oh my gosh, a very long time ago. I can't even think how many years ago that was
I think it was the
done.
90s, yeah.
And I don't think we had our bylaw in effect then, honestly. I don't think it existed.
I
And
think-
I remember being on the board then, and there was a lot of discussion as to how that was going to be built, how they were going, how the scouts were not going to stomp all over the wetland around that and so forth. And I remember having a lot of discussion so that they could build a walkway, a boardwalk, if you will, to get from one area of dry land across the wetland to another area of dry land. Another one that I can recall that was permitted by us was the town forest off of Woodland Road. And again, another boardwalk sort of item was built down there. And the benefit to that, quite frankly, was instead of having the pathway or the
Existing trail?
existing trail, thank you. And rather having everyone, put on their galoshes and go stomping through the wetland, potentially causing more damage and harm to, the invertebrates and so forth that are living there, that the boardwalk was going to be more beneficial than having everybody mud their way through it. So, I mean, there's a lot of different considerations that at least I, as a board member, take into consideration when we're talking about these things. I don't know if that helps.
Oh, it did. I was just trying to, I was given what we found and what members of the group found. I think someone in the commission just left, that there wasn't any sort of related material, wetlands like or otherwise in that spot. I don't know. I felt like we're putting a lot of energy into this, into something that I'm not sure is needed. But I respect the process. I certainly do. But we can get what's needed. Okay.
Mark, is it worth going around the commission and asking, if they go to the effort of making all the drawings and writing more justification and all this, whether people would support it? I don't know.
Sure, that's not a bad suggestion, Jeff. Yeah, it sounds like, the applicants here are wondering whether or not this is a dead end road or dead end path.
Well, the project or the process, I guess, was what I'm.
Well, the process is the process, right? I mean,
right.
We started down that path, and there are just requirements that need to be met in order to get to the other side of this and have an order of conditions issued.
Sure.
And then once that's issued, you have to adhere to, the constraints that are articulated in that and what you're permitted to do and not do. And then once done, you'll have to let us know what you built on the site in terms of some dimensional identification, so that we can go down there and look at it and issue a certificate of compliance, and then that lists the burden on the property. That's just the process for NOIs.
And I think we did, I think I may have actually raised this last time. I think, Melissa, you're back working in the townhouse at the moment. And I think the suggestion was that maybe the last meeting or the meeting before, that someone from the project, whether it's, Robbie and Lawrence or whoever the right people to do it, actually visit with Melissa, and she can show you an example of another NOI project that will, give you the examples of what the documentation is that we're looking for.
So
Let me ask this question: Were Robbie, Lawrence, and Whit Beals and so forth, were you on this Zoom meeting when our other hearing, the first hearing that we had tonight, was being held?
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's an example as to what an NOI for a home that's being built that involves a wetland is required, right? So there was wetland flags. Matt went down there, he actually modified one or two of them. And, the discussion that we had towards the end of that was asking them if they could infiltrate, stormwater mitigation, and either by providing roof drains or some rain gardens of the driveway and that sort of thing. Now, once they get a DEP number from DEP, then, and they make some modifications to that plan, then we can take it for the next step. But that's sort of the kind of process that, NOIs require.
So Mark, the next steps on this project would be to GPS the flags and to show the precise location of where the boardwalk sections and the platform would be located?
Yes.
Okay.
And I do have a question for Lucas Environmental, Matt, here with respect to plans and so forth that are suitable for an NOI application and issuing a order of conditions. Typically, we require an engineer's stamp on the plans, correct, Matt?
Yeah, the normal procedure is that the plan is supposed to be stamped by a professional engineer or a registered land surveyor. But I believe that can be waived by the commission.
That can or can't? I didn't hear you. Can be waived?
Yes, I believe so.
I would certainly want to have a crisp understanding of that, though.
Can it be waived for the certificate?
Well, I think I think the certificate, the language in the certificate basically says that if the original plan required a PE or PLS, then the certificate requires the same.
Like for like?
Yeah, and it's within the conditions, so we can alter the conditions for the certificate of compliance for what we are looking for.
Okay.
Just kind of as like a final question, what exactly would be required if we would be coming back for another meeting for this? Obviously, you said like a more coherent map, but is there anything else that we need?
Well, having dimensions and identifying where the wetland flags are with respect to the map is required. And having that in my hand as I walk down there is a huge help. Going down there without it is not that helpful to me, honestly. I can go down there, I can walk around, I can look, but not really understanding, and if you could actually mark out where the platform is going to be, would be helpful, because we typically have people mark out the corners of a house when they do an NOI, so we have an understanding as to where the corners are going to be, so that we can, physically understand where it's going to be, on the property. That's helpful.
Okay.
Okay, that's actually very helpful. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
If you stake out the platform, just those little stakes that they sell at Lowe's or Home Depot, those wood ones, putting 4 of those in the corners would help the commission, at least myself, know the size of the platform, where you're going to put it.
Okay.
Or even snow driveway stakes for plowing.
Right.
Yeah, we've put some.
You might have those in your garage already.
We've put some white fence post stakes from the farm down there already to mark out the trail. And we have one down where the platform is going, but I can definitely mark out like the 4 corners.
Yeah, we'll mark the 4 corners. That's a good request. Thank you.
Yeah. And we used to have a member on this board, Dick Upjohn. He was on it for years and years and years and years. He would love to see where the center line of a driveway is or the center line of a path. You don't have to mark it every 2 feet, but roughly, so you understand that where people are going to be, kind of in the center line of a path. If it's really thick out there and you can't.
I think we already provided that.
Okay.
I think that's pretty obvious, Mark, when you take a walk down there.
All right, Russ, I haven't been down there, so.
Right.
Yeah, and in the documents that we submitted already. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
And so with that in mind, if we were to provide those things at the next meeting, we're in principle, it's what you all want.
Comments from other commission members?
I'm still struggling with the invasives and that management perspective of this project. having spent some time out there, I know what's there. And that's all I got to say on that.
So
We've
by that,
addressed it, but
Russ,
yeah, okay.
are you asking them to provide a more detailed, like, invasives management plan or removal strategy? Because it's, you know, it's super hard to remove knotweed, as I think
Well,
a lot of
you know,
people
look, I think you're right, Jeff, that in my perspective, this is almost a project for 4 Eagle Scout projects. You've got the Japanese knotweed portion at the top. Then you get into all of that bittersweet, and if you stick your head up in the air, there's all kinds of deadwood up in those trees, whether the tree itself is dead or not from this Japanese, from the, yeah, come on, Russ. From the vine, the bittersweet. And then there's the debris that's down there. And then we're getting to making the trail. And I'm even just looking at it as the maintenance that's going to go into it on an annual basis from SOLF. I don't see it happening. This is a huge project.
Well, we have 60 acres of Beals Preserve that's pretty well maintained from an invasive perspective and things like that.
Sir, and you've also got a slope in Route 30 across from what used to be Spec Air that is ready to slough off the hill, and there's all kinds of stuff going on there. There's properties all over town. I understand. You have a lot of work to do, and to add this one to it, I'm suspect of. That's all.
Okay.
Hey, Mark,
Yes, Matt.
if I can just read to you, I took a quick look in the regs. There wasn't much about PE or PLS stuff. So I went to the instructions for filing a notice of intent, where sometimes interesting things are buried. So I'll just read this quickly too. So this is under WPA Form 3 instruction. It says requirements, professional services. The issuing authority may require that supporting plans and calculations be prepared and stamped by a registered professional engineer when, in its judgment, the complexity of the proposed work warrants this certification. Examples of information likely to require certification by a PE include hydraulic and hydrologic calculations, critical elevations and inverts, and drawings for water control structures such as head walls, dams, and retention areas. Issuing authority may also require supporting materials be prepared by other professionals, including, but not limited to, registered architect, landscape architect, land surveyor, sanitarian biologist, environmental scientist, geologist, hydrologist, when the complexity of the proposed work warrants specialized expertise. So what I get from that is it's entirely up to you whether you want to require a PE or PLS stamping any kind of plans.
All right. Thank you, Matt. That's helpful. Okay. So I think a number of the commission members are going to go down there and take a look. Sherry said we could park in a driveway. So I intend on doing that.
Just please stay on the path. We don't want to step on anyone's property.
Nope, I'll stay on the path for sure. I think we're going to continue this. But I'd like to hear from anybody that's out there in the public on the call list. Is there anybody that has their hand raised or anything?
There is 2 people now with their hand raised. So the first that I saw was the Serkis.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. This is Robin Donna Sergi, and I have a couple of things I'd like to add to this. I'm going to tell my age now. I've lived on Bigelow Road on this property for over 60 years. I'm very familiar with this property and how it has grown. Years, I would say 50 years ago, this property that we're talking about tonight was looked at by numerous neighbors around the swamp area. It was more of a somewhat of a pond that developed into a swamp. And they were actually talking and working with the state to create and clear out some of this to make a beach area, which would have been what is currently Sherry's house. We used to have a skating pond back there, and it was very, very large. And it was never intended to build. Well, when that became so invasive, that project, that got canceled. Town of Southborough had a very large snowmobile group. The snowmobile group cleaned the trails, the length of Bigelow Road. The trails went from Ward Road to Bigelow. They worked with the state, the MDC, and they used to clear the fire paths across the street for Bigelow Road, and they would continue their snowmobiling then. Long before there were all these regulations about engines and being near the water, etc. With regards to the little bridge that is down there, that was built by the Snowmobile Club. Those are railroad ties. There was a little brook there, which is still there, and they were railroad ties. There were approximately 8 to 10 that were put in there. And at the time, again, today it would not be accepted, but at the time it was, you were able to do that. And as far as the high tension wires, we have helicopters from the state fly over the swamp every 6 to 8 weeks, and they inspect the poles that are go right through the swamp into Westboro. Every time, it seems to be about every 7 to 10 years that they come out and they put those wooden planks in the water and they access the property through 26 Bigelow Road. They bring in big pieces of equipment. So this end of the swamp has never been used for that type of access. And the other thing is the turnaround that is across the street that I worked with the town on and the MDC. My house 42 was actually the turnaround for that. And the town of Southborough, McCarthy Pools, many other companies would use our lot at the time to dump. And my grandfather allowed it, my father allowed it. So when my husband and I built our house and we went through the proper channels, we needed to build a double foundation and bring in, I can't even tell you how many yards and tons of washed gravel in order to build our house and complete our septic system. So when you're looking and you're walking this trail out back, you will see debris. The town of Southborough, again, was one of them who put some of these concrete pipe drains that are along there. There's barrels that are along there. There's quite a bit. There's curbing that still has yellow paint from some parking lot or road somewhere. There is quite a bit to be cleaned up down there.
Yeah, hey, it's Rob Sergi as well. So a couple of things. Also, I know you guys flashed the map, and to be honest with you, I went down there. And first and foremost, maybe I should start. It's a little ironic that no one has contacted me, my wife, or our neighbor Cynthia Cram to actually go down there and look at it. I know, Rob, you did ask, hey, I'm open. I've never heard from anybody. That's number one, which probably made this whole thing a lot smoother. All right. Number two, we want a certified surveyor to do that, because what you showed on the map today is different from what I went down there, unless I'm not looking at it the right way. Because I have my lot line, I close to it. So what you showed today and what you have marked down there doesn't look accurate to me. So maybe when the commission goes down there for the walkthrough, I would like to join you as well, because have never been asked to join to look down there, and I don't think Cynthia Cram has as well, who's the abutter on the other side. And also, I'd like to bring up the parking, which I understand that the commission has no authority on that. It has to go through the selectmen, which will start that process already, and the town planner. So we'll do that. But first and foremost, this plan, I want a certified surveyor to show where the lot lines are to my lot. Because what you showed today and what I went down there and visually looked at, maybe I looked at it wrong and no one has showed me, but that is actually over to the left, closer away from the Cram's house versus what is shown on that map, unless I'm wrong looking at it. But so we would ask that if you do visit the site, that we would be also invited as well.
Can you put your contact information or provide that to Melissa?
Sure.
Phone numbers or whatever, given this whole virtual world we're in here. We'll have to be 6 feet apart, right?
No problem.
Okay. All right, thank you. Melissa, anybody else with a hand raised?
Yes, give me 1 second. Clark Lefevre, sorry if I said that wrong.
Hi, thank you, and thank you for your time tonight. I'm in a butter. I live on Bigelow Road. I've been on Bigelow Road for about 25 years.
Can we have your address?
It's 40 Bigelow Road.
Thank you.
And I do remember Harvey Bigelow coming up at the time. He was going to donate the land to Solf and discussed it with me and what his intentions were. And unfortunately, I know this is an Eagle Scout project. My brother's an Eagle Scout. Love that concept. It would be nice to, as Mr. Sergey said, to have a little just one-on-one and really understand what the concept was ahead of time before this. But as far as what's ahead of you tonight, I know you've been dealing with it for a while. I've been through the recordings. I will say, I don't know whether it was Mr. Beals or who felt that that Google map was very accurate and that the town assessors map is accurate. I will say that to my knowledge, the Google map and the town assessors map is not accurate for my lot line at number 40 Bigelow. So I would really suggest and actually require you to make sure that you have a full certified surveyor's map. I know that the other NOIs, go detail of contours and exactly where the wetlands are. And I would also request that you require that for this project. And just on a personal basis, I'm not sure why we want to have a platform down there. If there's already fill and there's a nice area to view, why would you want to disturb those wetlands even further by installing a platform or a deck? And the railing is just a lot of concerns around that. And likewise, just overall concerns about having a number of people down there. I think it's been brought up before that during COVID, there's lots of people who walk the trails across the street. And the trash and what we see people riding bikes on those trails where they're not supposed to, the dogs, the amount of trash that would go in those wetlands, I think would be a concern for this commission too. So just my comments for tonight. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Anybody else, Melissa?
Yes, Cynthia Cram.
Cynthia Cram, 44 Bigelow Road. I really don't have anything else to add. I would just say that I agree with everything that my neighbors have said tonight, and that there's been issues with, I've seen trash and littering as well, and parking issues and all of that that's been said before. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, Melissa?
Matt Geary just raised his hand.
Hi, this is Matt Geary at 46 Bigelow. Just the same kind of concerns. The biggest one for me, selfishly, is the parking and cars turning around in driveways and more people and more trash, as everybody else mentioned. I appreciate what you're trying to do from a project, but I just don't think it's feasible that people are going to use the parking down at Sawink, or however you pronounce it, which is probably at least, I don't know, maybe a half mile away. I don't think people are going to park a half mile away where there is parking. They're going to try to park on the street, or they're going to try to park on the in the bus turnaround. I know that's not the purview of you guys, but it's just something that I just don't think is a great idea to add to this street. It's a pretty quiet street, and we've already got a lot of selfishly, I've got people turning around in my driveway all the time because they get to the end and they realize they've come bombing down the street and they don't realize it's a dead end street that goes to a dirt road. And now if you're going to have more people parking there and dealing with that, it's just not something, frankly, I want in my neighborhood. I know that's selfish, but that's what the purpose of these is for, right? Thank you.
I do
Thank
just
you.
want to clarify that there is going to be parking installed at the top of the trail. So people aren't going to be parking on the street and in the turnaround, hopefully. And it is such a small property that I doubt we're going to have like 10 people who all want to go walk their dog at the same time. But I see your concern.
Anybody else, Melissa?
Miss Cram raised her hand again.
I just wanted to respond to the last comment regarding the parking. I sent an email this afternoon. I'm not sure if it was distributed to all of the members of the commission. There were pictures of a car that was parked in the turnaround across the street from my house this afternoon, and the school bus was unable to turn around because there was a car there. So they turned around in my driveway. And then a couple of hours later, I watched a landscaper turning around in Mr. Geary's driveway. So there's already an issue with parking and traffic, and I really feel strongly that this is just going to make it worse.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's it that I see.
Melissa?
Yeah. I think Heath had a comment.
Hey, well, I apologize for getting involved, but I've been waiting for my wife to get off this call, and I've been listening as I've been reviewing my daughter's contract for her newest job. Heath Wittis, 32 Bigelow Road. There are things that I would ask the commission to really think about and truly consider as the most important thing here. You have to look at the abutters. What do the abutters want? I can have my opinion. I live, 5 houses down. That's not really what's important. What's important is those that it's really going to impact. Parking. Yeah, that could impact me in the sense that I'm very happy with the fact that I live on a road that I only have 7 or 8 houses after me and I don't have to deal with traffic. However, as the Sergis have said, and LaFours, how do you say the last name? I apologize. Have said, you could really run into a traffic problem down there. And that's not fair for those people who live in that area. You were talking about the debris that's in the area. I imagine that debris spreads all the way from probably Andy Holland's property down to the end of the road. I don't even know how far it goes, but I know when we bought this house, it was my desire to maybe move one of those poles off our property. And just even taking a walk revealed that this possibly wasn't even just a dumping ground for the town, but when they put in those poles, it's clear that they must have had extras because we have probably 5 that I can see. And judging by different bulges in the ground, I'm sure there are more. In regards to street sweepings, I believe my entire back hill is made of street sweepings, thanks to the town of Southborough, but that's probably a good thing. It gave me a beautiful yard that doesn't grow grass. That being said, when you start going into building these paths, down to the viewing area, you're going to run into garbage. You take one piece of garbage out, what's next? You start pulling at that garbage, where does it end? Who pays for that? Those are things you have to ask yourself. You get into something like in my yard when I dug up by the house and found an old camper. What if you're digging down there and you find old cars? Now, where do you go from there? Now, where does this Boy Scout project go? I want everyone to understand I support the Boy Scouts, absolutely. I don't quite think that any of us really know what we're going to get into when we start digging into that. So that really has to be considered, and we have to be considered who's going to incur those costs. And speaking about costs, you have to say to yourself, who's going to pay for this when, and if the commission decides that we are going to move forward and give the Boy Scouts our blessing, and the abutters don't like that, and now we have attorney fees incurred. Who's paying those? I do think it's also a responsibility of the commission, not just to worry about the environment, but worry about the financial impact of their decisions as well on the town and its people. So you have that. And then when we talk about parking, I've heard in past meetings, again, I only listen in the background. We've talked a solution to parking is parking down at that, I don't even know what it's called down there, but it's in Westboro, let's just say that. I don't know that we really have the authority to say that we can have people park in Westboro to come to something in Southboro. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. These are things, I'm just throwing all these things out there. This is all stuff just in my head that I need to get out, that I would ask the commission as a resident to just think about and use in making their final decision on this project. And then to the presenters of this project also understand that, you know, even with the approval of you, this may not be the end. I mean, I would think this would be actually, quite frankly, more appropriate that the selectmen, you know, maybe even be involved in the decision here, because it doesn't really end with the Conservation Commission, I don't think. And if it does, please correct me, because I don't know. That's what keeps my wife and I happy. I don't get involved in her business. She doesn't get involved in mine in terms of our professional life and what we do. So that being said, yeah, a lot of things to consider. So hear what I said. Take it or don't. Thank you.
Right. Well, thanks.
Thanks.
If I could comment on that, on those remarks, there's no proposal to remove anything from the site. So with respect to finding other things that might be underneath whatever's on top, it's not going to happen. I haven't seen any evidence of any old barrels down there. The only man-made materials I've seen are the concrete culverts and some, I guess some pretty well decomposed utility poles, and perhaps a railroad tie or two. But everything is pretty much grown over down there, and we have planning to make a couple of nose-in parking spots on either side of the big boulder. And I can't imagine that there are ever going to be more than just a couple of people ever going over there and parking and going down to the viewing platform. And if there are, they're going to have to find other places to park. I think any abutter is welcome to visit the site. It's, you know, Southborough Open Land Foundation property, which is open and available to the public. It's never closed.
I'm willing to go with, like I offered last time too. I didn't have your contact information last time, so I had no way of contacting you. But if you send your contact information to Melissa, I can get the contact information from Melissa, and we can definitely meet up and talk this over.
Okay. We're going to move on. We have some more business to attend to tonight, and this is going to be continued anyways. To the next meeting, Melissa?
22nd.
You said, wait a second?
The 22nd, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I heard, wait a second. Okay.
I just want to thank the commission for its understanding, and we'll move forward with the project and get the additional information you've requested. Thank you.
Yeah,
okay.
I want to say the same. Thank you so much for your time and for being really clear about the marking, the flags at the corners and things like that. It seems like there's a pretty clear plan going forward. Thank you.
All right, do I hear a motion to continue this hearing?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, by roll call vote.
Watson,
Yes.
Pete,
Yep.
Guyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Masato.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, next we have a request to continue. This is lot 5 Granule / Brigham Road, map 50, lot 51. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, October 1, 2020 at 7:20 via Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for project located at Lot 5 Granule Road, previously part of 26 Granule Road, map 50, Lot 51 for the applicant Whitney Street Home Builders LLC. The project description is construction of a single-family home, septic and associated improvements, and installation of impervious barrier to contain breakout from the disposal area. So do I hear a motion to continue to the 22nd?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, by roll call vote?
Watson,
Yes.
Heat,
Yes.
Dyer,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yep.
Passamato.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, next up, we have a request for certificate of compliance for 74 Oak Hill Road and 2A Asari Drive, DEP 290-999.
So they've asked to continue again. They're almost done compiling the information that we asked for 2 meetings ago, and they should be here at the next one. I think I updated you at the last meeting, but just a reminder, I did find the building permit for the shed that was within question of the 20-foot. So I don't think it necessarily had a Concom sign off, but a building permit was issued for it.
Okay, thank you. So next up is a discussion of the Halloran CR.
So this has kind of been waiting in the wings for a little bit. There hasn't really been a viable solution that we have come up with for the encroachment at the Halloran property with the abutters, the Belniaks. So at this time, Aldo's latest opinion was to issue, kind of like a cease and desist and just have the property line be what it was, since the effort and time and money it would take to change those property lines would be extensive on both parties, regardless of who kind of was taking or leading that initiative. So it was his recommendation to just kind of say the line is what it is and stop mowing. So I guess the commission kind of needs to decide which avenue they would like to pursue. If they still want to think about a kind of like use agreement or license for that parcel that has been encroached for a certain amount of time, like we were previously discussing with the owner, or if you want to take a harder stance and just say, that's it, and move forward, because the CR should be recorded. It's kind of been hanging out there for a while.
Melissa, can you pull up that exhibit that we used before?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
I can't remember what the heck. I should have looked,
Just-
but I didn't.
Just like the encroachment
Right.
exhibit?
Okay. There was no structure on it, right? Their structure was like right in front of the line or something?
Yes. Let me just make sure I get the right one. June.
Sorry to put you on the spot like that.
No, that's okay. Let me make this a little bit bigger. So the dark line is the Belniak's property. And then this is the area of the encroachment. So there is like a maintained like landscape area that's kind of, it's got the nice stone, it's got a tree, etc. I think the tree actually is literally on this line. But this is all like maintained lawn area, and it's about 1,700 square feet. So I would think that the commission wouldn't make him take out, this third of a planter, but at least just stop mowing the area that has encroached.
I'm a fan of that. Just stop mowing.
Right.
I agree.
I can fly with that.
Should we have them, it's just stop mowing, have them mark it, put a marker there of some type, because if it seems natural to mow it, it'll,
What if
in the
we,
future,
oh, sorry, Carl, but what if we asked them to stop mowing it and then should they sell or after 20 years, they have to put markers in? Something like that where they can have it without markers, but the next person has to have markers.
yeah, well, yeah, that would be, yeah, something like that.
So do you mean like going back to our original proposal of they can utilize that area for 20 years or as long as they own the house, but once they go to sell or that time is up, they'd have to stop and like put up some permanent barrier?
Kind of going with a hybrid. So you can keep your planter, but stop mowing the grass. And then when you go to sell, you have to put stakes in the ground or monumentation and tell the new owner that you can't have it.
Yeah, if you stop mowing it for 20 years, it'll get to be obvious.
Yeah. Because we don't want to revisit this with the next commission in 20 years. That's ridiculous. Or what, 10, whenever they go to sell.
Yeah, or the next owner.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a shed there.
Yes.
Whose is that?
The shed is, I mean, they have it kind of overlapping right here, but it is on the Belknap's property.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yep.
Doesn't really overlap.
Yeah, I think it's just the lines.
Is there any setbacks for sheds on property lines?
Yep.
Yeah.
If I'm reading that plan correctly, it says it's over 0.7 of a foot and 0.6 of a foot.
Oh, the shed?
That's what I would read that as being.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
You're so smart.
So we'll say it's roughly a foot in our property.
Okay, I'm a fan of them moving the shed too. Because now we have a structure. That's a liability, which is completely different from lawn.
Yeah, I mean, they could be keeping gas in there and all kinds of stuff that really
Yeah.
needs to be moved.
So we should find out what the offset is if there is one.
Yeah, it's usually like 15 feet or so from the side,
Yeah.
but
How old is that shed? And
it's old.
Are you thinking
Let me
that
see
to
if
try to
I-
move it, it falls apart?
Yeah, let me see if I have a picture of the shed. Hold on. I think I might. I don't think that's the
Oh,
shed.
it's not that bad.
No,
Yeah.
this is that shed.
Oh.
That.
Oh,
oh, it's open-ended. Oh, oh, it's more of a crate.
Yeah.
made out of crates.
Yeah,
So if you move it, I think it's more of a pushover.
they might need to take that down.
yeah.
Looks like it goes in the fire pit.
Look at the moss on the shingles.
Doesn't seem like it's being fully utilized anyway.
Yeah.
Looks like it's got, a bunch of pallets in it. And
Yeah.
Well, they finished the walls, so they didn't need to use any more pallets.
Yeah.
yeah, they nicely spaced out the walls here so this isn't together. I mean,
It's
Sherry's
open.
spot on. That needs to be moved. No, it's not our place to tell them where they have to move it to. They have to get it off our property. They'll have to work with the building office to understand how far the offset is.
Although I can't remember if it's on a foundation type.
Doesn't look like it.
Looks like
Or
it's
that's
on
just wood.
wood.
Okay.
And blocks.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm okay with the stop mowing, keep your planter, but you got to move the shed.
Yeah, so you can kind of see where the stake is. So that's where the corner, so it goes straight through this tree, kind of right to the side of the shed, and then it also goes this way.
Yeah.
So you can kind of, oh, that's not loading. So straight back that way, straight back this way.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of
Another
blurry.
shed. We've got two sheds. They only need one shed, surely.
That was probably an old like firewood shed. I would assume. But, okay, so the commission, so I'll talk to Aldo then about kind of drafting something to stop mowing and then addressing the shed issue. And then something about the permanent markers, would we rather have the permanent markers sooner, or are we fine with the until they sell or 20 years?
I'm fine until they sell.
Okay.
That's me.
Is anyone against that?
So here's the dilemma though. When you go to sell, you want the property to look as big and open and everything as you can.
Yeah.
And I just feel like the noise that's going to come out of the woodwork all over again if we don't just go for it now.
Yeah, because that was one concern that Mr. Belniak brought up with the previous agreement or proposal, that, whoa, if I wait until I go to sell, then it's going to look mowed, and they'll think that they have all of this. So I would agree with Wes. It is something to think about.
Just like he thought he had all of that.
Well, but what we were saying, he's got to stop mowing.
Yeah, it won't look like his property after a while.
Yep.
Not long.
And you mow it once a year, so you're still keeping it down. You're not keeping all the trees growing. There's nothing really stopping them from doing that.
Well, just we're telling him he can't do it.
Can I ask a question and throw in my 2 cents here?
Throw a nickel in.
Okay, I'll make
2
it short.
dimes. Take 2 dimes.
So is there a question on who's potentially putting in this monumentation for the, is the town asking Mr. Belniak to put the monumentation in?
Yeah, well,
That's a
he's
good point.
encroaching. He's encroaching.
That's a
right?
good point, because it's not his property.
But he can put it
Right,
on
well,
his
I'm
side
just
of the
wondering,
property.
what would stop the town from putting in some, the town could put a fence up if they wanted to, it's their property. So what would stop the town from just putting some sort of monumentation there, just saying this is the town's property?
Great point.
Put up a keep off sign if you wanted to. Just my
Still
thought.
That's an excellent point. I mean, why should the abutter to our property put monuments on our property?
Because he's encroaching on it now?
Not a good reason.
It's a shared property line.
Yeah, but we're asking them to put monuments where the lawn area was previously being mowed, I think is what Carl was suggesting. Is that right,
Well,
Carl?
on his side, I would, no, well, obviously he can't put the monuments in the town's property. He'd have to put it on his side of the property, right?
Well, where are you asking them to be put?
I would say he would have to put it on, you want to stop him before he goes across the line, or him or whoever, right? So it would have to be some kind of thing on his side of the property to stop.
You
from
could get some of
encroaching.
that curbing from the Bigelow Road, cart path, and place that out there.
Yeah. Hey.
You can have all of them.
I mean, we don't require other properties in town to put monuments on their property lines.
Yeah, we do. The designate.
No, we don't.
Wetlands.
There's no wetland here.
Yeah, but it's a different. Obviously, it's a different topic, but it's
No
somebody.
wetlands here. So you're basically saying, hey, you need to put a monument on your property line where it delineates your property line from ours. You think that's a line you can cross? I don't.
Yeah, you might be right. You might be right.
I don't think so.
In Westboro, I have that. I have a conservation restriction that's a 4x4 post that they put up on certain areas that have CRs. I've got one at CarMax, which extends all the way down to the Stop and Shop. And there are these 4x4 posts. They smashed into the ground all along that line.
Who put those in though? Did the town?
No, we asked the proponent to put it in.
That was for a CR,
Yeah, but he's not a proponent here.
So would we want posts markers or like something like a split rail fence that's, you know, kind of a physical barrier that he cannot mow past.
What Mark's saying that I think he has a good point. I mean, it's, we can't tell him to do something on his property.
Right,
We
but
can
if
tell him to get
so,
off hours, but he can't tell
Yeah.
him what to do on his
so
property.
regardless of who's putting it in though, what kind of marker would you want? Would you want, you know, a post, a 4x4 post, just like a spike type deal, or would you want something like a split rail fence that's a little bit more obtrusive that, you know, you can't get a mower through?
Here's a question. How does he feel about this? He just wants to keep the grass, or is he really upset about this? I don't really know him. I haven't heard, so.
I mean, it's something that if you guys want to talk with him, we can invite him to the next meeting and have more of a back and forth discussion. You know, I know he wants to utilize this area. They wanted to try and find a way to do kind of like a land swap, but that just turned out to be infeasible. So, you know, I think he wanted this land, you know, and believed that he did have it as part of his property. But, you know, it come to find out that it's not, so.
I guess I think if he's gonna move the shed, which will incur a cost to him, then the town possibly could get DPW or us or somebody to put in something on the line
Yep.
at no cost to him.
Right. So what kind of barrier would you want?
Take posts. I wouldn't want to make,
I think Sherry's idea of what they did in West Row with the posts is
Yeah,
that was a great,
ample.
yeah.
Okay.
you could put
We
It's
need
not
a
very
wall.
costly.
no, you could put 4 of those in and it would be enough of a delineation to be like, okay. I get
Yeah,
it.
just stick one in the corner. That'll stop.
Would you want them in the corner or like more as a, you know, on this straight shot? Would you want,
I put an iron pin at that corner and I put 2 on each side of it.
Yeah.
That way when they disappear, at least we can locate the iron pin.
yep. Okay. All right. Did you want to talk to Mr. Belniak at the next meeting, or do you want me to move forward working out with town council and their attorney that they had been talking with?
I think at this point you can move forward with town council
Okay.
and their attorney.
Okay.
Melissa, maybe you could have a conversation first, just to
Yeah.
see if there's going to be any strong emotion. I don't know. There's always something about receiving a letter from a lawyer.
Yeah, no, I know like Aldo and myself have been in contact with the Belniak's attorney to try and figure something out. And, you know, I know they were really wanting to try and find something. So I don't think that this will, you know, necessarily bring them joy that we're saying, you know, no more mowing. But, you know, I will have that kind of proactive conversation.
And do they even have the shed on their radar?
It was brought up because when we originally, when SVT originally went out, they actually put it a little bit further over, so it kind of was encompassing the shed. So that, I mean, and this plan came from the land surveyor that they hired, the Belniaks hired. So they provided this plan to us, which was very considerate of them. So.
Mhm. Okay. Any other points on this?
Not on my side.
Okay. Moving on, recording secretary. You have an update on that?
We do have an update on that. So this week I did an interview with Vanessa Hale, the assistant town admin, and we did an interview with Katie Luske, I believe her last name is. She used to be the admin in Lexington for the Concom and is now the DPW admin in Hudson. So she has experience doing minutes and admin work for the Conservation Commission, so she's very familiar with the lingo. And we did talk to her about the fee schedule of $150 per meeting, which was what we budgeted for. And, you know, obviously we've had quite a few meetings, so that kind of, we already have a backlog saved up. So unless the commission has, any discussion or I guess complaints about, other people, this was the only person who applied who had direct Concom experience, especially with minutes. And she was very excited to get back into the public, meeting sector of it. And she is available for our meetings, and also in person when we get back to that eventually.
Do you have a date for that?
So
The world would love to know.
a date for what? Oh, yeah.
Getting back to normalcy.
No idea. I wish I did.
Yeah.
It could be a year. It could be,
Oh, good
sooner. But so we did talk with her today, and she is accepting. She's still available, and we would just have to appoint her as the recording secretary for the Conservation Commission. I think the Board of Selectmen is working out where they're going to start be classifying recording secretaries under like the SAP personnel bylaw. So the contract is only until June 30th of 2021. So it's turning into kind of a yearly appointment versus just kind of an ongoing basis. So that's kind of the only technical change or aspect we need to be aware of.
Okay. Any discussion from anybody?
No.
Thumbs up?
Excited you're getting help.
Yeah, do we have to take a vote? Do we
We
need
do.
to vote on
Definitely
this?
have to take a vote.
Yeah.
Need a motion, a second, and a vote.
Her name is Katie Luckzay. It's
Oh, boy.
Luczai.
We don't have to spell it.
Yeah.
So move.
All right. Okay, there you go, Russ. There you go, second.
Second.
All in favor by roll call vote.
Watson.
Yes.
Pete.
Yes.
Geyer.
Yes.
Gregory.
Yep.
Wittes.
Yes.
Pasamato.
Yes.
All right. So Mark, I'll probably I'll talk to you tomorrow because we need your chair signature on it. So we'll work out that logistics of electronic versus whatever.
Are you in the office tomorrow?
No.
Okay.
I'll be in on Monday.
Okay.
But maybe I'll talk to Vanessa and see if she'll accept like an electronic signature for this, or if she needs like a wet signature.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Okay, anything else tonight? I'm starting to grow roots in this chair.
Sorry, and I don't want to delay the proceedings either, but Deerfoot Road, I think you were going to draft something as a response, Melissa.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot. But...
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to pull up her email. So I was a little confused because it almost sounded like they didn't know the plan that John Cusis had sent over regarding the swale between the two properties. So I was waiting for that clarification, in terms of that agreement between the two, to see where that stood before I did a response, because I wanted to understand, what each party knew. So I am still waiting on that. And then what else was there? Obviously we can't suspend the certificate of compliance in terms, of one, we don't have any information and we can't stop the sale of the house, because that's not within our jurisdiction. So I think it's really the water trespass issue that they had the most concerns with, and Bowler seemed to be ready to address that with the swale that they were proposing. So that's kind of all I have, unless there's other questions.
No, none for me.
We really don't have a as-built plan yet to review. So it's really hard to determine, you know, the 100% compliance or have something peer reviewed.
And then just because I might be traveling in a couple of weeks, so I just want to make sure that I know what's coming up. That have you had did you get a chance to follow up with anyone about the Chestnut Hill Farm discussions earlier in the week? You
Oh,
mentioned
to Aldo?
Aldo.
Yeah, so I did send that off to Aldo after a meeting on Tuesday. And Mark Purple did stress that this was kind of a immediate response that was needed because they wanted it before their selectmen's meeting on the 6th. I did come to find out that the selectmen have withheld their liquor licenses for their events until this legal opinion and through the Conservation Commission's discussions. Because the selectmen didn't think that the events were in compliance with the CR, which the commission kind of made their point that they are. So I think there was some comments after the last meeting that Marty sent a letter requesting information of compliance to the trustees, and DA Hayden was going to respond to that, I think tomorrow. So there is kind of that weird stipulation going on with the Board of Selectmen and the trustees of reservation in terms of their events that I think they're working out, but I haven't had any direct contact with the selectmen. It was just in conversations with Mark on the legal opinion.
Okay.
But once I get an opinion back, I will send it out as soon as I get it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other business for tonight?
I just have one quick announcement.
Who's that? Is that yours?
That's Chris Lucas's new son.
Oh, wow.
Another one. Hey.
Awesome.
Micah Aiden, born September 22nd.
Oh,
That's awesome.
So cute.
Pass on
Family all doing well?
congratulations.
Yeah, everybody's doing fine. So
Good.
hopefully next meeting I'll have a picture of my new baby alpaca that's yet to be born.
Okay.
One day.
I think he's going to be cuter than the alpaca, though.
We'll see.
All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Wow. Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, roll call vote.
Watson,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Geyer,
yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Wittes,
Yes.
Cospado.
Yes.
Thought you were gonna hold off on me. That would have been bad.
I was
Great.
unmuted and I clicked it to mute.
All right, we are done.
Okay. Good night, everybody.